Hello, this is lesson 2 for October. We're going to go over the Greek myth, another very obscure myth called Gordias and the Gordian knot. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a really fun puzzle. Gordian knots, you can order this on Amazon. It's a puzzle, and it's a closed loop string, like a string, except it doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have an end. And it's looped through this, puzzle piece. And it takes about 2 minutes, but they actually solve the puzzle. Okay, here we go. Start with a fun puzzle today. Pull this up, and here we go. To the end, which means it's going to be solved. All right. So you're like, what is she doing? So you saw the name Alexander's Gordian knot. Truth, you can order that on Amazon. A lot of people enjoy puzzles. Every day in the New York Times, they have a connections puzzles. I love that. There's 16 words and you put them in groups of 4. And some days I'm like, I got it. Today I solved it. Other days, I got nothing. But I think it challenges me to think outside the box. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again. And this time we're going to go through the lesson. I apologize. I am working from home today and my printer is out. So I'm going to have to actually use the lesson today this way. So there are 4 versions of this story in your Google document, and you're probably going, why are there 4 versions? And if you were in the class, I asked that question. Why are there 4 versions? And a few of my students said, Mrs. Hansel, this is oral tradition. This is folklore. And I said, exactly. Your family may tell the story a different way from another family. When stories are passed down from generation to generation, the core of the story remains the same. However, little subtleties and nuances of the story are changed a little bit. So I'm going to read version 1. And then I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to read version 2, and then we'll do an analysis of the story. Okay, here we go. Gordias and the Gordian knot. In ancient times, there was a kingdom named Phrygia in what is now modern-day Turkey. The king of Phrygia had died without a successor, so the people went to the oracle of the gods and asked for advice. The oracle declared that the next man who entered the city driving an ox cart should be made king. And when Gordias, a peasant, drove his ox cart into the city, the people of Phrygia chose him as their king. To show his gratitude to the gods, Gordias placed the ox cart in a temple, tying it to a pillar in the temple with a complicated knot. So this is going to be really important here. The city was renamed Gordian in honor of the king. Over the years, many stories were told about the ox cart and the Gordian knot that tied it to the temple's pillar. It was believed that the man who could untie the knot would rule all the lands to the east. This is going to be important too. Many men came to the temple in Gordium and attempted to untie the knot, but they were baffled. Over time, the knot had grown tighter and tighter, and it appeared that there was no man on earth who could undo the knot. When Alexander the Great learned about the legend, he went to Gordium and entered the temple. He stood and stared at the knot, examining it from every possible angle. Then all of a sudden, he drew forth his sword and cut right through the knot. Thus, with a single stroke of his sword, Alexander undid the knot that had baffled all others before him. He then went on to conquer many lands to the east, just as the prophecy foretold: Persia, modern Iran, Bactria, modern Afghanistan, and India, eventually extending his kingdom all the way east to the Indus River in modern Pakistan. Okay, so first things first, lucky guy, a peasant, just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Or was he? The sun coming in through my window there. He, in honor to the gods, tied the ox cart with a rope in a complicated knot, Gordias himself. Remember, this is in the center of the temple. So if it's in the center of the temple and it's outside, it's going to, over the ravages of time, the weathering, it's going to get changed a little bit. Okay, so your second version, just looking at it, it's this long. Ironically, all the elements of the story are in here. So someone, a student, I don't remember, I wish I could remember who it was and give him credit, but he said, Miss Hensel, this is a summary. I said, you're exactly right. No more, no less, just the basic elements. A peasant farmer from Frisia named Gordias was plowing a field when an eagle came and perched on the yoke of his oxen, a sign, he was told, that he was destined to become a father of kings. Oddly enough, the nobility of the capital, Telmasis, had just been instructed by an oracle to hand the crown to the next person to arrive in the city on an ox cart. So when Gordias rattled into Telmasis on market day, he became king of Frisia. His son Midas dedicated their cart to the god, and displaying it in the new capital, Gordium, tethered it to a pole by a baffling knot. Here's a change. Midas, King Midas, the Golden Touch, is Gordias' son. Midas was the one who tied the cart in the temple. He's the one who tied the knot. The knot ends were tucked inside so they could not be pulled. And it was said that anyone who could unloose the cart would be king of all the world. So two variations there. In 330 BC, Alexander the Great wintered at Gordium, and like any other tourist was shown the impossible knot, he simply sliced through it with his sword. Okay, so a variation there, but the basic story. So we have a third version and a fourth version, and you can see not a long, complicated story. If you scroll down, as I'm showing you here, the analysis of the story is quite fascinating because we have a real life application today. And this is really bugging me. I think no, did that make it worse? The sun is just hitting it in just the right spot today. No, did not make it better. The term Gordian knot is used to describe a complex or solvable problem, a conundrum. I love that word, conundrum. It is a metaphor for a unique, intractable problem that is so difficult it's almost impossible or close to it to solve. And in order to solve a Gordian knot, as you saw in the video, you really have to think outside the box. Alexander the Great, some of you may think he cheated. He didn't solve the problem in the traditional way, I'll give you that. He was supposed to unravel the knot. He seemed to go against the spirit of the challenge, which was to manipulate the knot. However, he was an outsider. He came in with a new perspective. And he really, if you noticed from the first story, it said he looked at it carefully. He assessed it. He is credited with outsmarting the ancient puzzle by finding the simplest solution by cutting the knot. He embraced it with boldness and creativity. Let me give you a little backstory about Alexander the Great. He was pretty smart, a student of Aristotle. He would have been no stranger to logical puzzles. If it could have been solved by unraveling the knot, he would have done it. So he's this outsider who comes in, looks at and assesses the situation, and makes a decision. A simple decision: cut the knot. Today, the saying, cutting the Gordian knot, is used to describe a creative or decisive solution to a seemingly insurmountable problem. So here's the application today. We're all faced with Gordian knots. I'm going to stop share for just a minute here. Think about the Gordian knots in our world today. Climate change. It's not a simple solution. How are you going to get millions of people to stop using fossil fuels and stop driving cars, which are creating the problems in our atmosphere, which are impacting our climate? Right? How is that solvable? I'm not saying it isn't solvable. I'm saying it's a conundrum. Economic issues. Congress passes laws. We try to change the interest rate. We try to do things to manipulate our economy. Not a simple solution, right? It could be poverty. It could be, look what's going on in Ukraine and now Israel. Talk about a Gordian knot, right? So the world and society, 2,000 years later, remember these stories are 2,000 years old, we're still facing Gordian knots. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again. Whoa. Here we go. There we go. All right, make sure. So we're going to scroll down here. So in today's context, this story teaches us the importance of problem solving through making a simple solution, innovation, trial and error, like a scientist. There's a term in science called Occam's razor. The simplest solution is usually the right one. It could be, getting a perspective from experts. It could be, getting people in a room like Congress. Let's decide this together. Progress demands that we adopt a similar mindset to Alexander the Great and embrace the Gordian knots of our time, recognize confusion as a catalyst for clarity, and navigate the sophistication of modern advancements to gain genuine insight. So think about puzzles. Think about that Gordian knot I proposed at the beginning of class. It was perplexing. It was confusing. It was bewildering. It was baffling. But let me ask you this. If I gave you that puzzle, the actual puzzle, and I gave you the video, 2 minutes long, that showed exactly how to break down the steps, could you solve it? And the answer is yes. You would have to pause the video. You would have to take it slowly. But yeah, the answer was there. That's what the point was. That was the answer. In real life, in your life, ladies and gentlemen, there are situations that will trip you up, probably already have. It will stump you. You will have no idea what the solution is to your problem or how to go about finding one. And this will be your own Gordian knot, which you will have to find a creative solution for. So for example, if you scroll here, you can see right here, the Gordian knots in school. I think relationships, friendships, just saw that, absolutely Gordian knots, no matter what age you are. Some people are just really difficult to figure out. Opening a new locker, a combination, even a safe, maybe even a key in a door. Figuring out how to please a teacher. Learning how to improve at a sport. And maybe you've tried a sport and as much as you like the sport, you're just not good at it, right? Math computations and word problems, they're not for everybody. I'm really good in math. When I got to college physics, whoo, that really, really pushed me. My Gordian knot was making sure I got a good grade in the class. And I was just trying to understand it. Picking a science fair project idea. Isn't it amazing how some people just they find the simplest thing. I remember when my son's, one of his science project years, somebody did deodorant, like which deodorant really works the best. And I thought, what a genius idea, right? Because there's so many different brands out there. Do they really work? Fascinating, simplest thing. A science experiment. I've done science experiments where I've followed every step and mine didn't work for whatever reason. Joining a club. Maybe you thought joining this club or this study was going to be great. And then you find out it's not what you thought it was. So should I stay? Should I quit? Should I, keep trying? Navigating social media. Talk about a conundrum, the internet, right? At home, you have Gordian knots. Sometimes you may not understand why your parents make the decisions they do. You may not know how to please your parents. Figuring out what to wear. This is so silly, but some people, my son, my 28-year-old son, we were going to dinner and he comes downstairs and I was like, what are you wearing? Did you even think about where we were going? It was a nice restaurant. I was like, no, you need to change that. How to cook a complicated recipe. I love homemade bread. And if I have a bread maker, I'm fine. But there's chemistry to bread making and timing. And I think I'm just not patient and I will mess up the recipe. Finding time to complete all your schoolwork on time. Maybe your Gordian knot is procrastination. Maybe your Gordian knot is how to balance your time, right? Fun and play, or work and play. Maybe you play an instrument and you find a really complicated song that you just struggle with. Maybe you want to sing a song in tune, but you can't. How do you pray? I know so many of my students practice in temples and they tell me we pray or we honor the gods. How do you pray? That's a Gordian knot, right? Because it's not the same for everybody or every religion. Exercising the right muscle groups. Let me tell you, as an athlete, that is complicated. Learning how to study for a subject you dislike. There's always one that'll trip you up. Okay, so what we're going to do today in our essay is we're going to do exactly what we did last week. We're going to tell a story, which means we're going to mention who, what, where, when, why, how. And last week, you got to pick your own topic. And by the way, they were really good. And last week, you got to make it up, right? Just make something up based on what you know. So it's very, very important today that you understand this is a personal narrative. That means it's first person pronouns, I, me, my, myself. And it's true. It's a true story about you, right? Again, free topic choice. Let me be clear. I'm not a fan of academic topics. If you want to do, a topic about chemistry, make it apply to, an incident that happened with it. Me and other English teachers do not want a topic about grades. Okay. I know it's important to you. I know it's important to your parents, but no one wants to read about that. That is not an exciting, relatable, fun topic, everybody. Make sure you're doing that. Okay, so here's our lead today. What'd you learn from the story? So for example, after reading the Greek myth, Gordias and the Gordian knot, I learned where the saying, cutting the Gordian knot, came from. In the story, a peasant named Gordias walked into the city of Phrygia right when an oracle to the gods declared whoever walked in next would be the new king. Lucky guy. I found it interesting Gordia just happened to come along at the right time as if it was his lucky day. Then it was fitting to me when Gordias showed his gratitude to the gods by placing an ox cart in the temple, tying it with an intricate and complicated knot. I also learned people gossiped about what happened, spreading the rumor that whoever could undo the knot would be the ruler of all the lands to the east. I was surprised to learn the legendary Alexander the Great heard the story and came there attempting to untie the knot, and out of nowhere suddenly cuts the rope. I felt like this was cheating, as he technically did not undo the knot, but I admit it was a clever solution. So this is the summary, what I learned from the story. So those of you who are doing leads and conclusions, that's a great way to do it. Put the summary from your perspective. If you are not doing leads and conclusions, please do not do this. Put your time and focus on your 2 stories in the body paragraph. So this is any new student who started from the summer or May on should not be doing leads and conclusions yet. Children like me often face situations or encounter problems, both at home and at school, which appear to be too complex or seemingly impossible, but with a bit of creative thinking, I can usually find a solution. Body 1, when at home, I'm often perplexed by blank, not really knowing how to resolve my personal problem. And you can change this up. I can usually find a solution. You can add this to my Gordian knot if you want to do that, because that really is kind of what this is about. You can tweak these topic sentences here and the end sentences here so they fit more your prompt. Okay. Body 2, finding ways to work through complicated issues at school can trip me up. But I find when I think outside of the box, I am better at coming up with answers. Again, write a story. Now, this one should be easier. Boy, I'm telling you, school is stressful. I remember it being stressful. I remember athletics being stressful, having a game, a volleyball game or a track meet. Man, I'd be going along and then something would trip me up, right? Write a story about a situation that you had to really think outside of the box to solve. I feel school is the number 1 stressor in my life. It should be, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the number 1 stressor in your life. That is your job, right? So it makes sense. I'm constantly faced with baffling situations where I have to retrain my brain to find an answer. So when I think about applying the principle of a Gordian knot to my life, I'm right here at the restated thesis. I realize I encounter confusing and often impossible tasks, both at home and at school. But if I'm clever and resourceful, I can find a way to untie my own knots. Conclusion idea. There's so much I can learn by taking the time to read and analyze the meaning behind Greek myths. When I think about how Alexander the Great found the simplest solution by cutting the knot instead of the impossible task of untying it, I recognize how I should try to find the easiest solution too. If I cannot find an answer myself, it's up to me to search for people who can assist me. This could be discussing my problem with my parent or a friend and seeking to understand their point of view. I may need to investigate by looking up what other people have done on the internet, as this is a valuable source of information. And then whatever you did in body 1 and body 2, this is a great place where you could explain what they both had in common and how it taught you to think outside the box. So I'm just going to end with my own personal conundrum, and I'm not going to read it. I'm going to just tell you the story. So I have a 28-year-old dining room table, and I love it for sentimental reasons. My kids would, do Play-Doh, paint, eat meals. It's pretty beaten up with spills and scuffs. So I didn't want to get rid of my table. I love the shape. I love the size. I love the base, but I wanted to redo the top. And I thought about sending it to some place to get it refurbished. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can do it myself before I take on that, added cost. So I went all over the internet looking for DIY, do it yourself YouTube video projects. And some of them I came across. I was like, too complicated. There's no way. And so laborious and expensive. And then I came across what seemed to be the simplest solution, and it was called Retique-It. And it was, you can get it at Home Depot, you can get it at Lowe's, but it's just a really cool way. You strip off the top, all the scratches. So I sanded it down, stripped it off, and I get my Retique-It in the mail. And it's literally, I'm trying to think if I have a box. I have a box here. It wasn't even this big. It was smaller than this. And I'm thinking, how is this box, little kid-sized shoebox, going to fix my table? So the first thing, it had a little, it was about this big. It's like a little circular tube of base coat. So I lather on the base coat. It says, let it dry. It only takes like an hour or 2 to dry, or you can dry it with a hairdryer. I'm like, okay. And then it says pick a stain. That was actually the hard part for me before I ordered it, picking the right stain. So I pick a stain, right? And sure enough, the stain was exactly the color I wanted. And then they give you this little rubber stamp. Literally is a rubber like stamp, and you stamp it on to make it look like wood, right? So I'm actually going to carry my computer through the room. I had a picture in my classroom, so I'm going to carry it through my room here, and you can see laundry here, the finished product. So this is what I did for my table, and this is my official dining room. Okay, so you can see it was $99, worth it. I had no idea I was that talented, or I could do that. I'm going to stop sharing here. So it took me years to find a solution. And at the end of the day, I was like, this was so simple. Why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I fix it years ago? And sometimes our Gordian knots trip us up and we do nothing. And that's exactly what I did with my table. So I do think this story, obviously 2,000 years old, resonates today with me and with you. And I'd love to hear what your Gordian knots are, what trip you up. So please take the time, make sure you stay in first person. It should be truthful. It should be about you, and have fun with this one. The more fun you have, the more fun I will have. Thanks, and have a great day.